Before we begin today, we would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we are on and pay our respects to elders past and present and to any Aboriginal people with us here today. Thank you for allowing us here to learn together. My name is Daniela and I'm an ECEI coordinator from EACH, and I will be presenting today's webinar on supporting children with additional needs to have haircuts. So why are we doing a webinar on this topic? A lot of parents in our Chat and Connect groups raised haircuts as being a major challenge for their child and asked for strategies to support their child and make haircuts be a less traumatic experience for both their child and themselves. This also often comes up as a goal when discussing NDIS plans with families. It can be an especially challenging area for children, particularly those with autism spectrum disorder and sensory processing disorder. We decided that doing a webinar on this topic can help families to find ways to manage these challenges and build their way up to getting a haircut. Why are haircuts a challenge for so many children? The reason that many children with additional needs find haircuts so challenging is often due to the many sensory elements associated with getting a haircut. These include the sound and feel of the scissors or clippers. The buzzing noise of this can be overwhelming, and we often teach our children to be careful with scissors as they are sharp. You can imagine they may be scared when these items are brought out in front of them. As adults, it can be uncomfortable to have the capes put on around our necks, and so you can see how a child with sensory processing difficulties may not want to wear it. Also, the feeling of someone touching their head. Many children with additional needs do not like wearing hats or having things touching their head, and so this experience may also be difficult when receiving a haircut. Things like the water spray bottle or the feeling of hair sticking to their neck or bodies may also cause them uncomfortable sensations. Other things that might be a challenge for children with additional needs are things like the smell of shampoos, hairsprays, and gels, the lights, and the chatter of other people in the hairdressing salon, particularly for kids who are extra sensitive to sounds and have difficulty managing this in their everyday environments. The expectation to sit and stay still may also be extremely challenging for a child. Does your child find it challenging to sit for meals or for extended periods of time during an activity? If so, you can imagine why this would be a challenge during a haircut. Children can also become overwhelmed by the unfamiliarity of a new experience or a new environment. They may not know what to expect or what is going to happen. So you can imagine that this may cause challenges for children who feel uncomfortable in these kinds of situations and environments. There are a variety of reasons why haircuts may be challenging for all children, and especially for those with special needs. It is important to understand what your child is able to tolerate and what they find difficult in order for you to make appropriate modifications and have an understanding of the specific goals that need to be worked on prior to taking your child to the hairdressers. So what can we do to make haircuts easier for our children? Preparation is key, and this looks different for every child. This process could take days, weeks, or months, and that's okay. Don't throw your child into something you know that is going to be traumatic or uncomfortable for them. One of the first ways we can prepare is to practice and prepare. Depending on your child's level or comprehension, you may be able to talk about haircuts and get them to watch a family member or other person having their hair cut in real life or over video. Familiarize them with what a haircut is so there's no surprises or unknown factors that they will not expect. You can also read visual books or look at visual supports that support the hairdressing process. Know that the word cut may be frightening for children who understand its meaning, so consider using other phrases such as let's go get a trim or let's go get a pretty hairdo. You can play hairdressing on dolls and apps, or you can make it into a role-playing game where you can use salad tongs or pretend scissors to get them used to the process. If you have clippers or blunt toys, scissors, allow your child to safely explore these and get used to the look of it and the sound of it if you've got these available within the home. You can also explore a water spray bottle. These can be picked up from Kmart or Bunnings, and try practicing on putting this on your child's skin. Make it playful and fun. If they become upset, stop and revisit it another day. You can also explore the hairdresser's cape. These can be picked up on eBay for $5, or you can try and make one out of something you have at home with a familiar feel, such as a raincoat. You could also use a massage roller, ball, or other solid object to roll across your child's arm and back to decrease their sensitivity. Start with the first few haircuts in the home if possible, and once you can manage a haircut or most of one, then work towards the hairdressers. Work with your child's therapist to reach their goals. Therapists such as OTs can work on sensory related goals to assist you in getting a haircut for your child. Don't surprise your child when going to the hairdressers. Give them a heads up. This may look like weeks, days, or hours before to where they are going. Surprising children with something they dislike or are afraid of can have very negative effects and won't allow a smooth process. Please remember that each can provide supports to your hairdressers if they do not have previous experience with working with children with additional needs. Just ask your coordinator for our resource kits for hairdressers. The second way we can prepare for a haircut is making it as comfortable as possible. Use something your child responds to while they're getting their haircut. These can include sensory or fidget toys, iPad, or even earplugs if they're extremely sensitive to sounds. Do it at a time of day that your child's generally regulated and happy. Do not attempt to cut your child's hair if you can see that they're heightened, upset, or frustrated. If you're going into a salon, book a time where they may be less busy. Find one that's child-friendly and quiet. Consider lighting, background noises, and if possible, a hairdresser with experience cutting hair of children with additional needs. If you're doing it at home, choose a comfortable space in your home and have a seat for your child. If staying seated is difficult, start by having them standing. If it's essential for the child to have wet hair and this is something that they are highly sensitive to, maybe try having a shower or having their hair wet before going to the hairdresser so they don't need to feel that sensation again. As a parent, you know your child best and all children will respond differently. Explore a range of these strategies to see what works best for them. The third way we can make haircuts easier is by using visual supports. Use a visual support during the haircut, as this is what some children respond better to and may be helpful in assisting them to process what will be happening when they're actually there. It will also keep them in the loop on how long it's going to last. You can use a visual timer. There's certain apps available, kitchen timers, or even a sand timer. You can use a coloring board or a countdown. We will discuss some of these visual supports later in the webinar. Each will also supply a social story that can be used if this is something that your child relates and responds well to. The fourth way we can make haircuts easier is by using reinforcements. Have a reward prepared for when the haircut is done. Choose something that's super motivating and something that the child can have immediately, such as a little toy, sticker, stamp, or treat. You can also try a first and then. For example, first we get a haircut, then we go to the park. You can make this up in a really fun visual which they can hold as a reminder of what's to come after the haircut. Find a reinforcement specifically for the haircutting experience. Make sure you do not give it to them before the haircut is complete, otherwise the excitement of the reward will not be as strong. The final way that we can make haircuts easier for our children is to manage expectations. Don't expect your child to be able to have a full haircut immediately. Even if you start with one snip or clipper without a meltdown, this is worth a celebration. Keep it short and simple. Stay away from fancy haircuts, especially at the start. Build up the duration of the haircut from a couple of seconds to as long as it takes to do a full haircut. This can often take a couple of weeks or even months. Be flexible with it. If you, for example, pinpoint an element that your child just does not cope with, for example, the spray bottle, or your child wants to stand instead of sit, or they cannot tolerate clippers but are okay with scissors, decide if it really matters in the bigger picture. Be understanding if the child needs to take movement breaks and give the hairdresser prior warning if your child needs to do this, as they can allow appropriate time. Keep it as a positive experience. Do not push the length of the haircut beyond what they can manage. It's better to have this process take a few months than be traumatic. Another tip is having your child meet the hairdresser prior to the appointment and seeing if your child responds well to them before you even take them in for a haircut. Using pack cards can be a really helpful way to explain to your child the process of what will be happening. It can also be used as a visual schedule to help prepare children and assist them in adjusting to changes. Before your child sits for their haircut, think about the opportunities in your child's day where they are doing some of these things already. For example, what routines are they already sitting on a chair for? Have a think if your child needs support to do any of these things included in the haircut routine already. If not, focus on them individually by including them in your everyday routines. For example, using the spray water bottle. You may want to practice this while the child is in the bath or shower and build their tolerance to this before expecting them to do it for the haircut. These are examples of different forms of timers that can be used. Sand timers, auditory timers, visual timers, which are available on the iPad, and countdown or coloring timers. These are examples where you can use time to support your child when looking at encouraging them to sit in place for a particular amount of time. You know how your child responds, so pick a timer that your child will engage with the most and help them to understand their time expectations and how much longer until the task is complete. Here is an example of how you can use a first and then board. You can use this using PEX cards or real life photos of the child sitting in the chair and then their reward. The child must do the first before being able to do the second activity. It helps children to know exactly what is expected of them and assists with creating a structured and predictable environment for children. These can be altered to suit your child. At first, it may look like first put on your cape, then you can get your reward. You can build up to a full haircut step by step by working on their strengths and the parts of the routine that they find more difficult. The reward can be anything: a trip to the playground, a cuddle, or a high five are just some ideas. Here are some steps for a home haircut. First, show a visual or state that it is haircut time. Then you can get your child to sit down or stand in place where the haircut will be done and give them the visuals, social stories, first and then boards, or the timer. Step 3. Put on the haircutting cape, towel, or t-shirt if needed. As mentioned, if this is extremely difficult for your child, choose your battles. Understand that this is not completely necessary for a haircut and it may be something to work towards. Then you can aim for just one snip or clipper of the hair at first. You can use the countdown 5 to 1 very quickly. As the child begins to tolerate this, you can increase the amount of time it takes for you to count down. Step 5. Reward the child straight away. The next step, repeat when necessary and when needed. Schedule time in so it becomes a routine for your child. As the child begins to become more comfortable with the task, you can begin to add other elements such as a spray bottle, background noise, capes, etc. Haircuts is an area that lots of children and families find challenging. Remember to use a slow and gentle approach. We've seen kids that could not stand having their haircuts progress towards it becoming a routine that they are totally fine with. Shortly after we presented our first hairdressing webinar, we received a message from a family saying that they had felt confident enough to take their daughters to the hairdressers, where she got her first haircut without any tears or discomfort using some of the simple tools we discussed. Manage your expectations. It is a process, it will take some time, and that's okay. The more you work on it and the more you practice, the more likely your child will be successful in going to the hairdressers. Remember that your ECEI coordinator can support you in how to use the resources we provide, and it is something that can be discussed with your providers during therapy sessions. They can give you additional tips and tricks to help prepare for your child's visit to the hairdressers. Please reach out to us with any questions and feedback. We look forward to hearing some more success stories in the near future.